Jelly Spratley. My government name is Angelica because people ask me that all the time, but it's been Jelly since birth, so feel free to call me Jelly. I'm a senior data science instructor here. Prior to being a senior data science instructor, I have a master's of science degree in analytics from the home of the first master's degree in analytics. Everybody else just copied us, which is North Carolina State University.
Interesting.
Prior to that, I worked in analytics as far as big pharma, so pharma consulting. So feel free to ask me about that if you're in healthcare, because that in itself is a beast. And then moved on into manager of analytics in higher education before transitioning to mentor people to go into the industry. And that is a little bit about me. I love Disney World, so if you're a Disney World fan, then that's how you can network with me. You can tell me your favorite Disney movie or your Disney World park, and then I might put you on to my network. And I'm gonna pass it over to Japneet to talk about herself.
Thank you so much, Jelly. I love, by the way she introduced herself. That's fair. It's interesting. We have the topic AI and job displacement, but that answers, right? This is not a fact that AI could ever have it, that human collaboration and that smiles, right? So thank you so much, and again, for the warm welcome. It's an honor. Before I start and before I go into my introduction, I would love to have you do a round of applause for your own self for showing up. Thank you so much. And thank you for bringing in that energy, because for me, it's a part of one of my key takeaway in one of the questions which we'll be deep diving into. So hello everybody, this is Japneet Kaur. By job classification, I am a risk management professional with 3 masters. Did my first in finance, was not satisfied, maybe did my marketing. Went ahead to work in the space of marketing industry, but in the space of cybersecurity. I was with IBM, currently onboarding with Accenture as we speak. And it's such an honor to be here. My second most preference, or my passionate introduction, I should say, is about I'm an artist also. So I love to use my paint and brush, not just for something to beautify the walls, but rather capturing the stories, something that's inspirational for anyone. And so I paint women in STEM a lot. And my most third favorite role is being a mom to my 8-year-old. Pretty much you'll see where the curiosity level kicks in. So with that, I would love to kick in and dive into our discussion for today. Thank you.
Yeah, so as we said, our talk today is about AI and job displacement and how you can prepare for this AI revolution. Is it really as sexy as it sounds? We're gonna talk in 3 buckets. So we're gonna have some questions about AI and job security, and then it's gonna be AI and job efficiency, and then it's gonna be AI and workforce development. So if you currently are in the workforce, or you're thinking about how you can upskill your employees, or you yourself want to upskill in AI, we're gonna talk about that. So let's talk about the first bucket, since it's on top of mind for everyone, about AI and job security. Are your jobs secure, or is iRobot this thing that's just going to be working at all of our desks, driving all of our cars, taking care of all of our children, and we're just going to disappear? So the first question is going to be about what strategies can organizations implement to reassure employees about job security in this increasing season of AI adoption?
I love that first question, strategy, right? All right, full appetite question here. So the strategy, honestly, what I was thinking to strategize as my key takeaway from the audience, and will be sharing some information from both perspectives, something that I have seen being in this workforce, and something what really people are navigating as they make their way in and out of AI. So my first thing is definitely a very transparent communication, because I believe when I say communication, half of a battle is won right there. So when we say transparent communication, how does it have to be a part of strategy in AI? Because it is something like any organization, no matter what their size, they need to keep their workforce fully updated, right, on their regular updates on how they are planning to integrate the AI, and of course, what progress they are making in that domain. With that, I'll go second on in reskilling and upskilling the program, right? And that is, of course, with a lot of training program, which you said as a data scientist, right? I'm sure. Kind of like keeping and refreshing your syllabus so that the workforce can keep their skills very, very relevant. And then next is, of course, career development opportunities, which is right here, right? Where you get to learn real time, navigate, collaborate, and kind of like, map out your skill set. Like, okay, this is something I can say I have assessed, but okay, this is where I want to go next. And then, of course, as I said, human AI collaboration. And I'm going to emphasize a little bit more on this point because it's a role of AI as a tool to augment human capabilities, right, rather than replacing them. So it's all about enhancement and enrichment here. And then my fifth point is, how can we forget recognition and rewards? When I say that, it's something that's very motivational. If somebody is taking an effort to do any certifications, right, give them recognition and give them a hands-on opportunity on how they can leverage that, right? And then with that, of course, partnership with education institutions. Again, I would love to bring on the event like today. It's partnership and collaboration like this, where you get to learn the most industry skill set and keep yourself ahead of the competition. And I would say, of course, the last one for this strategy would be job redesign. It's kind of like redesigning the roles to incorporate your AI tools, allowing the employers to focus on some like rather high valuable tasks. So that are some key strategies that I could pen down for our audience today.
Yeah, and those are some great strategies. I think we have some overlap because you first mentioned transparency. Yeah. And everybody wants to work for an organization that's very transparent about their strategies. Do we plan on adopting AI in our 2, 3, 5-year plan? And what does that look like for our employees that may be replaced or displaced? Can they move horizontally within the company? So are you opening up other roles to get them to showcase their skill sets in the organization in some other type of way? Are you showcasing empathy? Because first and foremost, if you're not out here looking for a job and you're not financially struggling, you can't really relate, right? This is the reality of it. We're all trying to look for jobs, and the hardships of not having a job is really concerning for a lot of people. So meeting people with empathy and having this open dialogue, like, hey, yeah, there is a job shortage. That is the reality of it. But this is how you can differentiate yourself, and this is how you can work alongside AI. I like how you mentioned the human interaction component. I always tell people AI does not exist without HI, which is human intelligence. They have to go hand in hand. Right. HI was the one who created AI, right? Exactly. So even though this is a path of innovation, we've seen this type of innovation before. This may be a really interesting example, but I use it. And I said at one point we had outhouses. We had to go to the bathroom in outhouses, and we had people to build the outhouses, whether it's our own family or somebody within the local neighborhood or tribe. And then we created plumbing. So did the people lose their jobs that created outhouses? Of course. But then they created new jobs as plumbers. Yeah. Okay, so now having this innovation of, yes, we have AI where we might not need as many customer service roles, but am I still going to need a barber? Yes. Am I going to need people who actually put guardrails on our AI tools and technologies to make sure they're used responsibly? Because now there's going to be a lot more ethical, legal, responsible cybersecurity around AI roles that are now opening up that we're really going to have to transition into before using these tools and technologies. All right. So that is about reassurance of job security. Now let's talk about how leaders can effectively communicate the role as AI, and just how you mentioned, you said augmentation, not replacement. So talking a little bit about what we mean by AI augmentation versus AI replacement.
And I love again, and I will kind of like underpin to what you mentioned about communication, right? How the leaders can communicate, because that's why I put that as one of my top strategy as well, right? So really, again, I would start with rather a success story, like highlight the success stories, right? Share, like for example, like, okay, one of the one that you just said, maybe there were some loss of jobs, but then how it recreated some new opportunities as well. So with that, I technically mean that how AI has been successfully integrated, you know, to like amplify the productivity and job satisfaction without, of course, people being jobless, right? Second, I would think, again, get involved in the employee process. Have them get started way ahead in the process rather than when you're done building it, make them part of your story. And with that, of course, AI, human collaboration, I cannot stress enough on that, like because on how you can handle the repetitive task which you mentioned, right? And rather focus more on the decision making and strategic work. And the fourth tidbit I can say is leadership by example. It is kind of like where leadership should actually demonstrate on how they are using AI, even be it as a little example of productivity. I have actually seen some folks, or probably something I've seen, OneNote, like, you know, how you can use AI, and of course your meeting notes, you know. Yes. Thank you.
Yes, I definitely would have to second that notion, right? As far as communication, it was something you said about this repetitive task
Yeah.
and keeping people at the center. So you really need to do an assessment of what are some of those pain points or hate to do tasks,
Right.
right? We all have them on the job. I know for me, if I could get away with not taking attendance 2 times a day, I would. Regulation, I do, flat iron by chance. But if there is an AI tool that can help me do that, I want it to do that.
Correct.
If there is an AI tool like Loom that can take meeting notes, as long as you're not talking about IP or secure things, you need to be careful about that. I see a lot of, oh, let's automate AI note taking and meeting note taking. But if you're talking about something that you may want to protect, you don't want that going back to OpenAI. So make sure you use that with discretion. But if they're regular, general
Yes.
meeting notes that they can automate, because nobody wants to be the note taker in the room, I want it to do that. If it's a robot that washes clothes and cleans dishes, so then I can art and do my painting and watch Love is Blind, I want it to do that. So really get a baseline of what are some of those pain points in your organization that your employees want AI to contribute to. And then once you realize these are some repetitive tasks that can save them time and can open them up for more creativity, help them look at building an AI agent for customer service or anything like that, then they can focus on doing those types of tasks. So that's the way of getting people excited about AI and getting your employees to buy in to your AI strategy. So let's talk a little bit about job efficiency, since we talked about streamlining some of those tasks, those repetitive tasks, the tasks that we don't like being done. How can businesses actually leverage AI to enhance this efficiency without compromising that important HI or human element?
I love that question for sure, right? It's something like some insights to it and actually actionable insight, right? With that, I'll actually top of my list and high five to that. It's automating your repetitive task, right? Because of course you want to take away your mundane or freeing some of your space, but of course, kind of like another point I could say is customer satisfaction, which was another top of your key opening note as well, like how you can make that customer satisfaction experience a little bit more enhanced and enriched. Then I would say enhanced decision making for sure. With that, definitely I would say, because you know what, there's so much data that goes in, how you can better make your more informed decisions with that. And then of course, rather than supporting human decision makers rather than replacing them. That's a buzz highlighted line that I have. And of course, on how you can improve your operational efficiency, right? Because you are optimizing your supply chain, you are managing your inventory, and of course, you are reducing your downtime, and of course, strategic planning and innovation is some of my key points where I can say the business businesses can leverage AI.
Yeah, and that's great. From a business standpoint, they always
Yeah.
want to save money, and it's about what you can do to contribute value. So if I can implement an AI system that can go through all of my logs for me and tell me where my most compute power is being utilized at and send me a nice little alert, then I know if I need that compute power or not, and I can turn it on and off, right? So making sure that we can utilize AI in a way that's going to increase operations within our organization and at the end of the day, save time and money. As you already said, those repetitive tasks, and while keeping that human touch. We hear a lot about prompt engineering, and it's like, give me a stakeholder slide deck. I mean, that's great. It's going to give you something back, but you need that human creativity that's like, give me a slide deck that's going to impress Jelly. She loves Disney, and I want to get hired tomorrow. You need to know how to put that in there in order to give me something that has that human creative touch. So AI is going to get you started with the foundations, but you need to make sure that you have that human creativity element to take it to the next level, to give it another brand, to give it another reputation. So when you're thinking about how to engineer prompts in order for resource development within your organization, think about how you can augment, we call this RAG, right? Augment some of these outputs in order to best reflect your company as well as your day-to-day.
And with that, Jelly, like the good point that you mentioned about Disney, I could think of a great example, Netflix, right? It's an AI, like which pick up on your the user feed, the user content that, the stories that you're finding in,
Yeah.
right? It's going to bring up as your sponsored list or something, hey, we recommend jelly, this should be your next watch, based on your habit or the data that is being feeded. Then I could think of something from Accenture, which I've recently experienced, which is my visit. I absolutely loved. I think this was definitely something my standout, again, something in disclaimer. My own experience, I love the virtual reality on the onboarding, how they made it very experiential.
Yeah.
And something that you really enjoyed, like where you were getting your job done, your task done of onboarding, yet you were having a nice virtual reality experience with your other new joiners.
Yeah.
And seeing them all in that virtual augmented reality was a great one. Amazon is another good example, right, where we have seen a lot of things like how the workforce, when we say about the repetitive tasks, like they are sorting the tools, they are sorting the orders. So there are some key examples which I want you to pinpoint when you brought in the point of Disney.
Yeah, it really sucks in new clients because I know Synthesia is an organization and they had a whole webinar about their avatars that can feel emotions, right? And they look so real. And I'm sitting up there trying to make my avatar have cornrows and, of course, be an African American and have some tears when I say my order didn't come and it starts crying. And I feel like that this customer service rep is really in tune with me. So I'm going to stay with you and buy more because now you give me this customizable AI tool that looks like me and it's feeling like it's my homegirl saying, hey, I lost my shoes in the wetness tomorrow. So whenever you can add those customizations like that or add customizations to your products to differentiate, you actually can acquire and retain more stakeholders and clients than you think.
We love the word stakeholders.
Yeah, we love it because you need to know your stakeholders, your audience, right? So let's talk about some misconceptions of AI. Sure. So some common misconceptions of AI. What do you have for me?
Misconceptions. Definitely one of the food for thought question. We actually have to sit and say, okay, something like which I would say even I have experienced firsthand. And I would say, to your first question, will AI replace like human jobs, right? So see, do you think there would be really a widespread of unemployment? To address that, I have like AI as, again, Jelly, your point, augmented. AI is more likely to augment human capabilities rather than replacing them, right? And emphasizing collaborative potential of AI that can actually help alleviate the fear in that domain. Second point I was saying, is it really too complex to implement? Actually, I would love to know some of your thoughts. Feel free to raise your hand. How many of you really think AI is actually complex to implement? We would love to know audience feedback. Come on, it's audience. I'm not asking any robots here. Like the technology.
On a day-to-day, do you think it's
Yes.
really difficult for me to create an AI agent and then deploy it on Amazon and for him to have my
How
face
user-friendly
cornrows?
tool?
How user-friendly
Yes.
you think it is?
I think it's more of like, I guess in terms of replacement, it's like, but doing them on a scale and making it foolproof and having eye for detail, I think that's where, like, there is a disconnect in terms of wide-scale implementation that can replace the entire workforce. Like, I'm at JP Morgan. It's going to be like, the fact that people talk about, like, they're going to replace all this. I'm like, do you know how slow we move here? Like, we're a bank. Like, it's the idea of
Not we a bank.
all being replaced by AI overnight. I think, yeah, it's like it's funny because we're not scared of like IDE extensions, but we're scared of ChatGPT replacing us. But it can improve our efficiency so much.
Yeah. I'm actually not shocked by that result. We have a lot of tech professionals, so if you said AI was too complicated to implement it and you're in one of my classes, we were going to have a good stand-up. But no, it seems like very limited people feel like AI is complicated to implement.
No, thank you so much. I think that's such a good point because that pretty much underpins or underlies my third question, which is people many think that, oh, maybe AI is only for large companies or some companies with large budgets now. Right? That's another myth, I would say. That's a misconception. Then AI is infallible, meaning, okay, I have one tool implemented, bingo, my job done. No, that also need continuous upgrade, continuous maintenance. So that was one myth, which I think you have to poke in a little bit, of course. And then AI lacks transparency. I think this was, again, one of the word which was kind of like hashed out. Some people think AI actually operates like a black box and lacks transparency pretty much in your decision making, right? And I think to my knowledge, or the way I have to input this or address it, I would say you're promoting use of explainable AI, AX techniques that can help you make your AI system kind of like provide more clear documentation and expression of the AI models, as you said, right? The IDE, like just to build that trust. And I think another one was top of my list was, is AI one-time investment? No. You have to keep maintaining and recording that. And then is AI tech-savvy industry, which kind of like, again, bringing your
Yeah.
point of data science. So I would love to know your input there, Jelly. What do you think? Is it really AI, like tech-savvy industry? And another point which you mentioned, that are we losing loss of control?
Yeah, those are some good points. And I think you've hit on some popular misconceptions. And I want to touch back to the large company. Is AI only for large companies or just for tech organizations, right?
Right.
And no, there are some affordable AIs. All of you have probably utilized ChatGPT and Gemini by now. However, don't just throw all of your company's data into ChatGPT and Gemini and expect them not to use it, okay? So keep that in mind. If there are free AI options, it always are some security concerns, cybersecurity concerns, regulatory concerns, especially if you're in a bank or in the healthcare industry that you need to be mindful of. But there are some cost-friendly apps and platforms. But at the end of the day, AI itself needs a lot of compute, okay? If your company isn't putting out GPU money, you might not can use AI tomorrow. As this gentleman just said, what's your name? Chase. As Chase just said, we move slow, okay? And getting up enough money and investors for GPUs is not gonna cut it, okay? So it really is a costly thing depending on what you're trying to do with it. But can we do the recording of meeting notes? Can we do, let's generate a nice little bot so when customers ask things, they don't really need to go to a human? Yes. But the misconception that AI is new is not a thing, right? AI has been around for 70 plus years. So I would say that's a common misconception. Now, generative AI is more new, where we're generating new output, but AI, as far as getting machines to actually perform tasks for us, to make predictions for us, that's machine learning. And even back then, that was Turing test, all of this good stuff, right? So really, those are some of the common misconceptions that I see on a regular basis. I would say do your research. Of course, as tech professionals or people, we don't take anything at face value. As a data scientist, I look at the data. So just make sure that you're looking at the data and be mindful, as you said, AI is not always correct. AI in itself does have some censorship behind it, right? So they might not tell you the most recent news articles about a war. It might not tell you the most great market segmentation or target audience for certain things because they have guardrails built in. So don't think that AI is always up to date on the current events or that it's not biased or it's not censored on the back end. There's actually a lot of censorship and certain bias that goes within it as well. And I recently did a project about sex bias in AI and actually fed it a prompt to say, give me an interview response as a male for this data science question. Then give me this interview response as a female for this data science question. And surprisingly, it wasn't gender bias or sex bias like previous versions of ChatGPT, but it was tool bias. Anytime when you ask for data analyst questions about BI, it will give you Tableau. Why? Salesforce owns a big part of OpenAI or invests in a big part of OpenAI. So you're not going to get Power BI Looker unless you specifically ask for it. It's only going to give you marketing industry examples as interview question responses. It's not going to give you sports. It's not going to give you healthcare. Why? Because it was trained on a lot of business case studies. So if you're interviewing for specific roles, it's not going to help you with that. So there's underlying biases within these tools that you have to be very careful about how you prompt, make sure you're actually asking what you need, and make sure that you're actually assessing some of these biases.
I think that was a very great point that you mentioned about your project research.
Yeah.
Yes, you, again, a human response, you have to validate what you are inputting with your data as well.
Yeah.
Awesome.
This is very, so I'm going to wrap up these next two questions in one complete question, if you don't mind. So workforce development. So let's talk first about how can we identify the skills gap within our organization for AI? And then once we assess the skills gap, how can we actually implement a workforce development program to make sure employees are upskilled with the right tools and technologies for this revolution?
No, very great question again. So definitely one thing I would like to highlight is the skills assessment, which I think I would make as a base of my comment here, right? Because it always again, kind of like a cyber mind with the risk analysis or risk assessment. See where you are with your current skill sets and then, what's the map out the next path to grow, and of course analyze the new job roles and requirements, and refresh, navigate, pivot as needed, engage with the industry experts, see what the demands are coming up, how they are working, or how they are kind of like pivoting based on the current needs that they're feeding in, employee feedback and surveys, which I was about to say, Jelly, on your point, when you do the projects, right? What benchmark have you seen being set out? And kind of like develop the tailored program. That you have to be very quick with the changing needs within this industry, because it's not even second, like nanosecond, things are changing. And of course, leverage AI for your training. That was definitely one of my closure point here. And of course, monitor and evaluate. I cannot stress enough on this, because you have to make sure continuity with, like, you have to have that continuous with effectiveness, and of course, evaluate your impact with your training and all. And to your other point, which I'm thinking here, could be your personalized learning path, or when you say how we can actually have that, right? I think universities can definitely hit mark or check mark on that, because it will definitely help the students see, okay, where do we start with our curriculum, how we are redefining that. Some of your interactive and immersive training programs, gamification for learning, who are very big in games here, and of course, collaboration and knowledge sharing. It is old-fashioned, but it never goes out of fashion, as I should say.
Yeah, I love that term. Of course, being an industry professional and an educator, even before teaching at a boot camp, high school educator, I'm always thinking about differentiation of learning. So if you're trying to upskill, or if you're trying to find your next educational opportunity, make sure that it has a curriculum that can somewhat be flexible and differentiated towards your needs and your learning and things of that nature. And even if you're interviewing for your next job, ask about those mentoring opportunities.
Yes.
Can you shadow some of these AI projects, even if you're not really assigned it out the get-go? How do they value professional development? Because now I'm starting to feel like tuition reimbursement is not a thing. Maybe I'm looking at a lot of job descriptions, and companies are kind of hesitant to kind of invest in upskilling and reskilling with their employees. That could be for a number of reasons. I have my own take on that if you want to ask me about that later. But make sure that you're asking for these opportunities and making sure that you're staying up to date. Self-advocacy. Always advocate for yourself. I think that's one of my biggest strengths, even going through many jobs. I want to go to this conference. I want to learn this. I want to do a lunch and learn. I want to network with this person. And make sure that you're always keeping yourself at the center, being willing to help, being willing to learn, because this is a fast-changing revolution, and you don't want to get swept away. You want to keep moving up the ladder and not letting that wave bring you back down. So with that, I want to thank you, Japneet, for talking with us. And to Lisa, I'm going to open up the floor for Q&A. If anyone has any questions, for 2 questions.
Or actually, just as a wrap-up, to piggyback on very good points that you mentioned, hackathons are something very big which we are seeing in the industry from big companies like Fortinet, Microsoft, so participate in that. Get your skill set tested. There's only so much that you can learn and contribute.
Yeah. It looks like we did a good job. Daniel, you don't have no question. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead, Daniel. What's your question?
You mentioned at the end, you just said your self-advocacy. And just in general, good ways to come prepared for whether it's a performance review or a new job interview, whether it's a salary negotiation, whatever it might be, good ways to come prepared, any tips and techniques, tricks on improving your own self-advocacy.
Say, run me my money. No, don't say that. But either way, do your research. Say, for instance, I know LLMs is a big thing. Right now, I'm not currently in a role that's leveraging a lot of LLMs, but I know X department is. Or I know this conference is coming up, and this is going to give X amount of business value. I can come back and do a lunch and learn for the team and teach everybody about LLMs, so that way they can learn how to implement it or utilize best practices, right? So always try to tie it around to how can I give business value back to that organization based off of what I'm advocating for myself to do.
And just to piggyback on that, I would again tie it back to my point which I mentioned, tailor it around. There's not just one. If you start looking into it, there's so much that you can actually offer, right? So yes, as again, like self-advocate, go dig deeper, you will find a lot. And you would know, okay, this is something I have, how I can amplify more. Yeah.
and ask about who's going to be a manager before you accept that job. Because if you have a time to talk to the manager, you can tell if they're about self-advocacy or if they advocate for their own employees. And so that is very important because most people leave their jobs based off of the manager, not the job itself. So make sure that you have that opportunity to actually interface with the manager before you say yes to that offer. Take it from experience.
Totally.
Not my current manager, Flatiron, not them. All right. No questions. That means we were clear?
Awesome.
All right, so as I mentioned, my name is Jelly Spratly. You can look it up on LinkedIn, just like Jelly. It's going to pop up under that alias.
Do they need to find you with another buzzword in the
No,
chat
no,
GPT?
no, just Jelly Spratly. I kind of have a name for myself already. It's not too many Jelly Spratleys out here. Peanut butter jelly, Jelly.
Awesome. Just to wrap up, really all I can say is it's not about job displacement. I'm so glad you brought in the question about self-advocacy because we work with people. We need people, right? It's the collaboration. Thank you for showing up and bringing such a vibrant energy today. I don't know if you're inspired, but we are leaving this session totally inspired. So thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you all.